I literally opened up a door and I walked in and bang, there was a hood on my head. That was the end of who I was. Having a bag over your head and zip tied up and the whole lot, people screaming at you, it was full on. Like, just instantly changed me. Really key point I remember from there where there was a real shift was when I literally just sat down and had self-acceptance. And acceptance for the good, acceptance for the bad, acceptance for the unknown, acceptance of myself as a character, acceptance of what I'm good at, acceptance of my failings, and just going, I'm not one thing, I'm many, many things. Once I accepted that, it was huge. The acceptance of myself.
Here's Pod O'Sullivan with Don't Let the Old Man In, a podcast from the Wisdom Vault.
Merrick, welcome to Don't Let the Old Man In. Glad you're here.
Great to be here, Pod. Thank you.
Before we start, for anyone who's listening, why should they continue? What are they going to get from our conversation today?
Nothing. I would tune out right now. It's a great time to press stop and move on and find a better podcast. I've just ruined your podcast, Pod.
Again, why not?
Why would you listen? Because I'm going to speak very earnestly, very seriously, but also too, I'm a comedian. So there'll be times when there'll be levity and brevity. So perhaps different to some of the other conversations that you might have had.
I am interested in talking to you for lots of reasons. So I moved to Australia in 1995, and within maybe 2 years of that, you were everywhere. You and Rossa were everywhere. Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about where you are now. I want to talk to you about legacy as a 50-year-old man and what are you doing, because you're doing some really interesting stuff.
Yep.
But can I take you back to your comedian roots?
Sure.
You have talked about growing up in Melbourne, about your dad wasn't able to give as much as you'd like. And that's the origin of humor. Pain is often the origin of humor. Tell us about what you learned from that time that allowed you to grow into the comedian that you became.
There is a saying that I've heard, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's show me a comedian and I'll show you somebody with a poor relationship with their father. So whether they be a male comedian or a female comedian, there's often a link to a disruptive childhood of some kind. My father was never abusive or a bad man or anything like that. As a result, probably of generational influence, probably had an impact on my life as a child that then has had an impact on my life as an adult. And some of my behaviours, some of my motivations, and some of my patterns of thinking are developed from that childhood trauma. Now, when I say trauma, I do not recognize that as the true sense of trauma.
Yeah.
Only in the sense that it has, and I know this from working with a psychologist, is that it has actually impacted. It's like an acorn that grows in your brain, something that is not necessarily, at the time, not recognizable as an abuse or even an unkindness, but something small and trivial can grow in your brain like an acorn. It's like inception. You root something in there. And that is what happened to me as a child.
When you look back now, what are you happy about? Because a lot of, when you think about how we are developed through our family, we can take it many, many ways, but eventually get to a phase of, I got to accept that.
Yep.
And actually, I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, acceptance is the biggest piece. I was talking to somebody about this only a couple of days ago, about the fact that people say that they get awareness and, they get strength or they get clarity or whatever, all these great things that you can have, little epiphanies in your life. And I think people associate a change or a perceptual change of me as a character, as a person, as a comedian, as an identity, was after I did a television show called SAS Australia, which is based on Special Forces selection, which I managed to complete. And everyone's like, oh, you kind of transformed there. And, that was, it was like a before and after moment. And yeah, absolutely it was. But before that, I started doing the pre-work for that selection course. I started doing the pre-work for the television show to prepare myself physically, because I was not an athlete and I knew everybody else was. But the mental preparation was massive, and the kind of really key point I remember from there where there was a real shift in me, where I felt secure enough to put myself into a volatile, dangerous and exposing situation, was when I literally just sat down and had self-acceptance. And acceptance for the good, acceptance for the bad, acceptance for the unknown, acceptance of myself as a character, acceptance of what I'm good at, acceptance of my failings, and just going, I accept it. I'm not one thing. I'm many, many things. And when I accepted myself and, my kind of polymathic brain and the way I think and the way I act and the way I am, and, people sometimes refer to me as a chameleon because I do have a broad latitude of traits and personality. Once I accepted that, that was a super change for me. That was it was huge. The acceptance of myself.
What's the liberty that came with that?
That I'm enough. That I am enough. That whatever I am is enough, and whatever I am is my purpose. So people say, oh, my purpose is to do this thing. What I've come to realize is that my purpose is to be, not to do. I think I have many times confused my purpose with a thing to do, but now I understand that my purpose is to be. Understanding that my purpose is to be me, it allows the acceptance of the good and the bad traits, the wins, the fails, everything. The polarity of everything kind of just sits.
That's an extraordinary place to be, isn't it?
It's pretty good. I reckon we could wrap it up from there.
Yeah, that's right. This is it. The best is here. We're going to go back first from now on.
Soundbite, and we're out.
I was actually listening on the way in this morning, listening to an interview between Colin Farrell, the actor from Dublin, and Jessie Buckley, who's from my hometown, who just won an Academy. And they recorded it 2 or 3 months ago, so before she won the award. But he was saying to her that he is now at a stage of his acting career, and in my mind, he's one of the best actors I've ever seen, where he said, I've just realized my only role in life is to be. This is why I'm saying this is quite profound. He said, as an actor, if I can just be, then I can play any character. I can, because I'm just being them and I'm being me. But he said, as a human being, I've just learned to be. He said, I'm just far happier because of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of stuff just melts away. If you accept that just to be is enough, and to just make your way through this existence and respond and react to whatever the environment gives you, that's your purpose. That's what you can be, because we can't possibly say that, our divine purpose is any one thing.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Just a quick break. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I hope you are too. What I've been doing with these episodes is a couple of days after I record the conversation, I sit down, grab my ideas, and I put together my reflections on the conversation and what I've learned from them and what kind of sense am I making from them. That's called my reflections episode. I also try and experiment to actually apply what I've got from the conversation. You can listen to that in an episode. You can also download a simple handout on don'tlettheoldmanin.com/reflections to help you do the same. Back to the conversation. I've always struggled, I do a lot of work in the corporate world. I've always struggled with people go, can you help me figure out my purpose? As in that one and only thing. And I've always gone, well, first of all, why would you want to? Because there's so many other choices you could do. But B, how the hell would you know?
Yep.
Right, until much later if that was true or not anyway.
And it will change.
Yeah.
It will change. There's a thing that I'm starting to realize now, and I talk about it now, being 52 years of age. And I think, Colin Farrell probably is at not a similar age, but probably a similar point, where I liken it from moving the shift from being the actor to the director. And I call it the Clint Eastwood effect, right? This is just something, a way I describe it. It's not a real thing, so don't Google it. But it's, Clint Eastwood was a great actor. He's a fantastic actor, but he really made an impact. Yeah. So when he did Unbroken, it was like that was the game changer. He was acting and he was directing and he was shifting into direction. Then he did $1 Million Baby. He arguably had the same impact or more as a director, but that's a shift that he designed.
What do you think it is?
I think it's really smart cognition of self, the awareness, the ability to see yourself externally and say, where and how can I apply myself now and in the future? If you're just doing the same thing all the time, then that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nobody ringing up and saying, hey, De Niro, stop being De Niro.
Yeah, that's right. You're you. That's
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But and you have evolutions, and they've had evolutions in their careers, but there's like that was a real kind of walk away moment. Yes, he still does acting, but he was very much, he became the director.
I heard Matt Damon in an interview once. He was asked, who's your favorite director. And he quite rightly said, I'm not going to say that because I mean I could employ it by the next one.
Yeah.
But he said the most extraordinary impact on me as an actor was Eastwood.
Yeah.
And he said because he said he never says anything in a demanding way, but he demands you do everything in one take.
Yeah.
Because he says, why would you waste everybody else's time?
Yes.
And he said, as an actor, that means I have got to be on top of my game.
Yeah.
But he's never asked me to be on top of my game. He just goes, we're doing one take.
Yep. And that's the mastery, but also too, it's the respect that he commands, that people understand that before they walk in there. And that's not through threat or through fear. It's through people having to self-examine and saying, am I prepared enough for this? Preparation is everything. If you respect them, you'll prepare.
Yeah.
And that's why, having very limited experience in acting, but have had some, is that the ones that I have worked with and I respect, and I certainly tried very hard to do, is prep up. Make sure you are ready. Make sure you are ready, because otherwise you're wasting people's time. And so when I see poor behaviour, childish behaviour, star behaviour in anything, it just kills me, because it's so disrespectful to put yourself in a position where you think your behaviour it's acceptable to slow the machine.
Yeah, it should be tolerated. Yeah, exactly
Anyway,
right. I don't know if you know this.
Actors.
Yes,
they're no
who'd
good.
want to be the one class above comedians? Is that right? Here we go.
I would put juggling clowns.
Fair enough. I don't know if you know this. The reason we're called this podcast, Don't Let the Old Man In, is a Clint Eastwood story.
No, I didn't know that. Tell me.
So Toby Keith wrote a song called Don't Let the Old Man In, which became the theme music of Mule, which is Clint Eastwood's last Oscar.
Right.
Clint Eastwood was 84, 85, and they were playing golf together at some golf tournament charity thing. And Toby Keith said, oh, happy birthday, what are you doing this year? He goes, I think I'm going to make a movie. And Toby Keith goes, but you're 84. And Clint Eastwood, I wake up every day planning how not to let the old man in.
Rage.
Yeah.
Against the dying of the light. I thought it might have been a Dylan Thomas quote, or something from a passage from one of his writings, a poet. But yeah, I like that.
And so you talk about respect. I saw Morgan Freeman on Jimmy Farrell, or Jimmy, that late night show in the US last week, talking about how he plans to stay young every day based upon Clint Eastwood saying to him, never let the old man in. Keep young, keep relevant, keep working hard.
Yep. Whatever works for you, if you can create your own mantra, if you can create your own saying that you can bet in your mind, as simple as it might be, it's a good thing, because I genuinely reckon that if you're not growing, you're dying. There's no middle ground. You either grow or you die, and dying is inevitable. Growth is not.
Yeah.
So you can make a choice to grow, but you think about this, people, and growth is difficult and it's painful, and it's meant to be that way. But people move away from growth because with growth there's pain and suffering, right? But that's why they're called growing pains. If you're not growing, then you are by fact dying. So every year I always look to do something that helps me grow as a person, physically or mentally. I always do something every single year. There's different terms for it. Mosogi is a Japanese term for it, and it's basically about upskilling, learning, changing, evolving, but setting a yearly challenge.
How do you pick that?
Sometimes they just come to me, and sometimes I want to do them. So this year I'll be doing Kokoda. So Kokoda is one that I've selected. That'll be difficult.
That's a big challenge.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
The folks who are not aware of Kokoda, tell us what it is.
That is about 100-kilometre trek through the mountains of Papua New Guinea, retracing the steps of Anzac soldiers who fought there in the war against Japan in the 40s. The Australians had unbelievable casualties there, and it was a horrible theatre of war, and a lot of them were conscripts, and they defended their country with honour and valour, and it's a remarkable story, but it is just full of suffering.
Because it's jungle.
Yeah, and it's brutal, and it's dangerous. And they fought a war at the same time. So, we talk about doing the Kokoda track and being difficult, but we are literally just going over a track that's already been cut. These guys were cutting it out, and it would have been immensely difficult. They didn't have fancy Solomon boots. Some of them didn't even have boots. It was pretty grim. But that's something I'll do this year. Last year I did a marathon in Africa. which was all terrain, like over terrain. That was the toughest physical day I've had. It was really tough. That was over 5 hours, and it was very tough.
Can I take you back to 10 years ago? Because I think 10 years ago is the first time the broader Australia started noticing, hey, America's changing. Okay, you're on Men's Health magazine.
Yep.
And then you did SAS TV program a couple of years later. The word transformation, I looked up the article yesterday, and the word transformation was used quite a lot. But what struck me at the time, and reading it again yesterday, it was you were signaling to everybody, I'm not the young 20-odd-year-old guy from Melbourne you all remember. I'm actually a middle-aged man now. But what struck me was a lot of middle-aged men start declining in our mid-40s.
Yeah.
You actively stopped and
Yeah.
in order to climb differently.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that?
It's small things. I always thought I was very capable. Like I always thought, even when I was unfit, I always thought, no, I'm pretty handy. I'm pretty capable. I always liked sport, and I did martial arts when I was young, and I was competitive. I've always been very competitive in everything I do, but I always felt capable. And many, many years ago, probably about 15, 16 years ago, I injured my shoulder just playing rec footy, just AFL playing a mark, just, park footy. But I blew my rotator cuff and hurt my shoulder really badly, and it healed up, and I was like, I'm going to go play footy again, blew it out again. And I went, this is only rec football. I'm not even playing, contact football anymore. And I was kind of disheartened by it, and then I put on a lot of weight, and I just started feeling, pretty ordinary. I had kids and stuff like that. In my mind, I was a younger man with a fitter body, and I was throwing my kids around, and I went to put my children above my head, and I just couldn't elevate. And I realized my shoulder had atrophied, and I didn't have strength. And I went, I can't even throw my children above my head. I literally could not throw them above my head. And I went, that is not how this is going out. We're not doing this. So that's like, well, I'm going to do something about that. So then I went through physical transformation, built it up. My shoulder is still a bit tricky, but it's certainly strong enough to do all the things that I need to do, including throwing my children around. I don't throw them around anymore because they're
older.
They're adults now. So
yeah, they might throw you around.
No, they're teenagers, so they don't even talk to me. So we don't have.
They will come back and they will throw you around. But the 12-week transformation in Men's Health magazine, did you enter that in order to get an outcome like being in Men's magazine versus actually that was the tangential outcome?
I was offered it, and I felt like it was a gift. The universe will create serendipity for you if you're open to it and you recognize it. That's awareness, just having awareness of what's going on around you. So I was aware that there was an opportunity. When it came in front of me, maybe a few years before that, it wouldn't have been something. But I was like, no, that's an opportunity that is being given to me, and I was very grateful for it. They're all fantastic. I was so thrilled to do it. But it was the first starting point, because very quickly after that, once I did the 12-week transformation, I lost about 12, 14 kilos or something like that, a considerable amount. Then somebody said, I'm going to go and do the Sydney Half Marathon. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go and do that. No training. And I went and did it. And I was like, okay, well, it was pretty tough towards the end. But I was like, oh, okay, that's achievable. But what I really liked about the half marathon, for the first time, like in footy training, stuff like that, you have moments where you get such a lactic build up in your stomach that you feel sick and you spew, and that's very common with footy training, pre-season particularly. But and doing sports, you can feel a bit crook. But that was the first time I'd ever got to a point where I just was really feeling pain, and I was going, this hurts. So it was probably only 18 Ks in. I only had a few Ks to go, and I was going, this is really hurting.
You really hit the wall.
This is turned into real shit. And I was just like, I'll just finish it, and then I'll think about it later. And then I was like, once I got past that, I was like, I get this. This is like, that's a thing. That's what people talk about, is that moment of pain.
Was that your first time experiencing physical pain like that?
Where it's constant. Like, so, with an effort, like in a sport, you have an effort, and then even if you're sick, you'll still have a recovery because you're forced into recovery. With something like a marathon, or a half marathon, you will get to a point where endurance becomes part of your mindset as opposed to just your physical set. The physical set will tell the mindset, we would like you to stop because this is not fun. And then the brain has to talk to the body and just say, I don't care what you're thinking right now. And then the relay goes between, and eventually they just cancel each other out. And before you know it, you've crossed the line, you're done.
I've done 3 half marathons, all badly. I've done 3 half marathons. But I had the fortune of having a friend slash running coach who's an ultramarathon runner
Oh, great.
joined me for the last 10 Ks
Yeah,
of
right.
all 3. And you say 18 Ks, it might have been 15, 16. I can't remember where it was.
Yep.
But when I start hitting the wall, they go, right, we're just going to count in tens. 10 down to 1, repeat, 10 down to 1, and just completely distract me
Yeah.
in order to get through that. And then just follow through,
Yeah.
right, left, repeat, right, left, repeat.
So I don't even have that battle. I just don't. I understand it,
Yeah.
but I don't have that self-talk where I go, come on, mate, come on. That's not happening in my mind.
What's going through your mind?
Just get it done.
Just get it done, right.
Finish this. You're suffering, but you've suffered before. So just don't. I don't engage myself with an internal dialogue of motivation or self-pity.
Ah,
There's nothing going on. There's nothing going on up here. But there's nothing going on up there.
would your
Would your
wife agree?
No,
She wrote
my
the
wife
book.
would say there's too much going on up there.
Sorry, Georgie.
But I compartmentalize things very differently to
Yeah,
other people.
yeah.
And sometimes it can be, so I ran a half marathon last year in Adelaide at 51, and I had done almost no training. I just was like, it was just a charity fun run kind of, it was an event, just a public event. And it was raining, it was miserable, it was cold. And I started running and I was like about 4Ks into it, and I just looked at my watch. I went, oh, that's a pretty good time considering it's pouring with rain. And I looked and I went, why don't you run for a PB? That was it. Just took off and then ran a PB. Just ran a personal best.
There's so many people listening to this right now who will hate you. Who'll
Yeah.
go, I am the guy who talks myself through the last 4 kilometers, and he just goes,
Yeah.
oh, let's just do a PB while I'm here.
Well, I was 4Ks in and I went, it's a big commitment now. I have to make the commitment right now because my pace will drop off. So I just have to maintain this pace and accelerate a little bit, and I'll make a personal best. And so I did, and I got the PB only by a very short fraction, but the last 2Ks were very, very tough on the legs because I was undercooked.
Yeah.
I was definitely undertrained. But again, that becomes the mental battle. But I don't, like I said, I don't have to convince myself. It's just like my mind just says it's going to get done. It's not going to not get done. So there's no point having a dialogue about this.
But you're a guy who likes, and we discussed this earlier, you're a guy who likes structure and chaos.
Yeah, I
Right?
love
The
it.
structure of just get it done.
Yep.
And in the meantime, I'm going through chaos as I'm just getting it done.
Yeah, always one foot, one trench at a time. Just keep going. Always one trench.
Speaking of which, military, you didn't just appear on a program, SAS Australia. You actually went through the process of being assessed to be admitted into the SAS.
Yeah, it's like, well, the show it's a TV show based on SAS selection, and it's, from what I understand from proper veterans, not just people who worked on the TV show, they said it's a very good example of a compressed snapshot of real selection. So you do a lot of the similar stuff, right? You go through a lot of the hardships. You have food deprivation, heaps of sleep deprivation. At first I thought it was going to be a physical test. This will be tough. Will I be fit enough? So I trained and tempered my body to be subjected to pain and injury and to hardship. That was all fine. And I was like, but it's going to be, I was told by operators, former operators, they said, it's mental. It's so much more mental than physical. It's probably about 60% mental. And I was like, okay, great. So then I started preparing myself mentally for it. And, that's when I started unpacking myself and, getting self-acceptance. Because I thought, if I can't accept myself when I'm on that course, they'll undo me.
Yeah.
They'll see a crack in me and they'll open it up. So I'm going to close that off now through acceptance. So then when I went on the course, I was good to go mentally and physically. But in hindsight, what I realised, and having spoken to several psychologists, including one who was a former Psych 4 in the SAS, the mindset I have is very, very similar to operators. I like some of the same things. I like pressure. I don't wig out when there's pressure. I focus when there's pressure. I see things that you've observed today. I see little details in things, so I'm quite observant. So there's lots of little traits. I'm not saying I'm a perfect example of it, but I was told, they said, look, we'd identify the traits that you display as being similar to what we look for in a person for selection. Because I wanted to do the TV show because I always wanted to know
Could you do it? Yeah, yeah. We had Captain Matt Bunker on here a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he's great.
Brilliant.
He's a weapon.
Absolute weapon.
I've got better hair than him, I won't lie.
You have far better hair than
I
his.
do.
He cuts his off, but that's beside the point. But he told us on the show that he was going in for selection and then piked it. He said that's the end of it. But then he worked on himself for 3 years and wrote a letter saying, here's all my flaws, here's what I've been doing, here's where I am today. And he said, no one ever gets accepted a second time.
No, I know.
And the letter was, see you Monday morning, 9 o'clock.
Love that.
Brilliant.
I love
Absolutely
that.
Brilliant.
Because he demonstrated the key thing, which is that is exactly, because I was listening to that and I was going, that's exactly what they're looking for, right? And people, I think, just genuinely are, whether they know it or not, is that it looks like it's a test between, at first face value, it's physical. It's not. Then people think, oh, it's a mental battle. It's not. It's a character assessment. That's all it is. It's a character assessment.
For a specific role.
It's a character assessment. So when I heard Matt Bunker's, it's because I knew that if you bug out of selection, you can't go back. And then taking the time, preparing himself, and then putting himself forward is brave to go and to do that because it hadn't been done. But like all the work he did it forward. That's probably what they're looking for. It's a character test.
Yeah.
So he showed so much character. I think about that and I just go, that's wicked.
Yeah.
That's such a...
I mean, for those who haven't listened to that episode, he goes on to tell a story about in a conversation where he had to put his brother into prison. That took character. That took courage. That took a whole lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's like, bravery and resilience and determination and all these key phrases that people love to throw around in podcasts. At the end of the day, it's character. It's like everyone's got parts of those things and portions of those things. It's just about like how much of it is in your character and how you display that in your character.
You said at the time the SAS program was the most transformative thing you'd ever done. Now, given what you just said about character, to what degree did it allow you to discover parts of you that you hadn't just seen before versus build parts of you that hadn't existed before?
Yeah, good question. For me, it answered a question, which was, could I, if I'd gone one way when I was younger, could I have gone through SAS selection? Could I have gone on the selection course? How would I have gone? Because when I was a boy, there was only two things that I was ever interested in as a young, like I liked footy and I liked, hanging out with my mates and I like girls. I like all the things that, young teenagers do. But very specifically from the age of about 11, I reckon, all I wanted to do was either be a comedian or be a SAS operator. All I wanted to do.
Is that right?
All I wanted to do. All I wanted to do, and probably more, wanted to be a SAS operator more. All I wanted to do was join the SAS, not the Army, not the Air Force.
The Special Air
Service. One of the first books I ever read voluntarily was a book about David Sterling and the SAS. And I read everything. I knew everything about the SAS before I was in high school. I used to read books about the SAS, and I watched the film Who Dares Wins with the embassy in the UK, and I was like, that's whatever that is. Whatever this is, that's me. That's how I think. That's what I related to it. When people talk about they read something or something, they gravitate to it, they relate to it. That was the first thing that spoke to me. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do.
So what spoke to you about comedy? Because as an outsider, it strikes me going, they can't be the same. Like they can't. But there has to be. I was going to say, chaos and structure have to sit in both places, don't they?
They're so similar. And, so many operators that I know talk about dark humor because when things are really, really bad, your capacity, your character to be able to lighten them with humour can be critical. It can be critical. It can be just what people need at the right time. And that's what comedians do. We select those moments to help people. But there's lots of similarities. Pressure. Doing something that other people are fearful. The number one fear in the world is not joining the army.
Speaking on stage.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And I have no fear.
Right.
Clearly.
Because you've been thinking about it since you're 11.
Yeah, exactly. But I loved comedy as a kid. I loved American movies. I loved Chevy Chase and Bill Murray. I had lots of comedy heroes.
Right.
And then the DGen, which was a locally made program in Australia, I had all my heroes and I loved comedy, but I always imagined myself becoming a soldier, a professional soldier. And that was it. And then sliding doors, and then, age and all sorts of things. Kind of, I was kicked out of school. All sorts of things happened, which probably should have put me in for the army. But I just chose comedy. So when I did SAS, when I did the TV show, all I wanted to know was, would I have been able to step out onto that selection course for real? Would I have passed it? No, I can't say. But would I have been able to go out there and apply myself? I reckon I would have been able to. I would have had a good crack at it.
We look back now, because that's not that long ago. It's 6 years ago. How do you think about it?
Transformative. I went in one person, I came out another. Literally. And it was about understanding myself, my character, my leadership qualities. I'm not somebody who seeks to lead. I lead when there's a void. So that was a really interesting thing. I don't have to be the person out the front as a leader, but when there's a vacuum, I will fill it.
Which is what the military want.
I don't want to be given the title, but if there's a power, not a power vacuum, that's the wrong term. If there's a leadership vacuum, I've noticed it and fill it.
Which goes to your comment about character. That's when character steps up.
That was something I learned about myself. Also learned, that I've got, people talk about resilience, but what I've come to understand is, I talk about this a bit, is the acceptance of suffering. And I think people are so reluctant, overwhelmingly reluctant to embrace suffering. You should have suffering. Suffering is humanity. And if you keep, everyone tries to do everything they can to not suffer, I believe that's the wrong thing to do.
This trophy for our participation is such a bad idea for our kids, I think.
Suffering and success are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
You want success, you have to have suffering. And if you have suffering, you should show some success.
Well, anyone who's got long-term sustained success does not have a lack of suffering. You might get overnight success once, but you won't get a sustained one.
That's luck.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. Time for a quick break. If you're enjoying this episode with Merrick, you're going to love what's coming up over the next few weeks. We're digging into why men's circles are growing so fast and what men are getting out of them, because connection might be the thing you didn't know you needed. The secrets of living longer and healthier so you can add years to your life and life to your years. And everyone's favorite topic, sex, because it turns out most of us have been getting a few things wrong. Don't miss any of it. Hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Now, back to the episode. If I understand this right, you didn't always take pain well, in the sense that I remember you in an interview with Husey once, where you talked about you held a grudge for quite a while.
Yeah, I do like a grudge. I do. I can marinate it for years. So if anybody's watching, you would not want to upset me, because I just bank things there and I can sit on them for decades.
So how do you reconcile letting go of pain, just being, and the part of you that holds a grudge for as long as you want to hold it?
I think it's selective. Some of my greatest grudges I've let go of, but I've got new ones to replace them. So it's like, I only have a certain capacity for grudges. So if I bring a new one in, I have to get rid of an old one.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's true. I'm not joking.
Is that a cognitive process that you do?
No, I just realised it then. Pod, I was just, that came out of my mouth. It was verbal diarrhea. But it's true though. Like you can't have grudges because they're unhealthy, right? But I do like to lock one away, maybe a couple there, and I just keep it tight, and I don't share them. I don't talk about them, and I just keep them there. And then one day, the sword of Damocles just waiting, and I know this sounds awful, but I never forget. I never forget that stuff. So I wait, and I don't necessarily, it's never necessarily, followed up with action, but I never forget.
Are you able to forgive?
No.
Which is why you don't forget.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I can forgive. It's harder to forget. And forgiveness is something that, you learn more as you get older. If you asked me that when I was 30, no way. When I was 30, I was a very different beast.
Yeah. And this is why I'm interested, because I often think when a small, like a young business founders break up, or a band breaks up, or a comedy duo breaks up, right? You don't just, the band is breaking up. You're losing your friends.
Yeah.
You're losing the way we do life.
Yeah.
The way we've done life for, in your case, since you were 19, 20, 21, whatever it was.
Yep.
And I think it's really, really hard in your 20s and 30s to go, I know they want to walk away, or I know she wants to do this, and I'm okay with it, because I don't think you're able to be okay with it then.
Yeah. The bigger the chips you're playing with, the higher the stakes, the more that compresses that focus on relationships as well.
Yeah.
If there's no stakes in those relationships, then you don't notice them. They just fall away. It's the stakes that make those bonds tighter and the jeopardy of them higher. It's the stakes. Money.
Right.
Usually money.
Right. Was fame important to you back then?
It was then. It's not now. I've shifted from fame the same way, when I was talking about the Clint Eastwood effect. I don't need to be the actor anymore. I wish to be the director. And I'm very, very comfortable with that shift. Fame was the actor. Legacy is the director. So I'm more interested in creating positive legacy than I am in being famous. Some people, particularly my age, choose to try and continue to keep the same profile they had when free-to-air television was big. It's just not. Yeah. And I don't want to go on TikTok and make myself look like a goon, because that is not how I see myself. That would be a challenge against my own understanding of myself. So I don't cling to that. And that's, identity issues. So I don't cling to that identity. I shifted to another identity.
Can we talk about that? Because that's one of the core aspects of this podcast that we come back to time and time again is, our listeners are predominantly men aged 40 to 60 who are going through multiple identities.
Yes.
Changing career, changing marriages, changing countries, whatever it is. And the act of change itself is easy. The act of shifting your identity is not. And you've shifted your identity more than once, but I suppose the most public one is the comedy identity into what came next.
Yes.
When you look back now, Merrick, with the benefit of hindsight, what did you go through to able to help you shift that identity?
I've heard you talk on your podcast, Pod, about identity with men. I think it is the number one issue for men of our age is identity. So many other things are the base of the pyramid. At the top is your identity. If you talk about the identity of soldiers, and I know lots of ex-operators, Special Forces operators in commandos and in SAS, their identity is defined by who they were in service. Then when they come out, they struggle. I heard a mate of mine, Dan Pronk, who's a former SAS doctor, terrific guy, and Dan was talking about it on Instagram about the identity and the shift that's required when you come out of service. That's a massive, a really, really clear, easy example. But if you look at just average guys, identity, and what I think people do is they tie, and I've done this, so I've been guilty of it, and it really hurt me, is tying your identity to your job. Do not allow your job to define your identity. Define your identity and define your job.
That's two separate things.
They're two different things.
Yeah.
Because when you define your identity, then you'll understand your purpose. Your purpose is not in your job. It might be, because you've elected to do it. You might have, your job, your vocation, your passion might, be like ikigai. It might be all wrapped up in one. Great. But if it's not, then you need to separate them and understand that your job is not your identity. My problem, the biggest challenge I've faced, I don't know what to say, it was the biggest challenge I faced. I've faced a lot of challenges. Most of them are self-made, which probably says maybe I'm the problem, is I had an identity collapse. But my character was accepting enough of it to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Straight away or over time?
It took a little while, Pod, because so what happened is I finished radio in, I think, 2017, and I'd done 20 years of radio in drive or breakfast radio at the highest level, nonstop. And I loved it. My last year of radio, I was broadcasting on Triple M, doing drive. I loved it. I had a great team, loved it. It was a very successful show. It was good. But I'd done 20 years and I decided to put a bow on it because I felt like I was not seeing something else, not seeing the rest of the world. And so I left radio and I started my company Grapes of Mirth, which is, a whole other thing. But I was like, I've got a good feeling about this and I feel good in this space and it relates to my identity as a stand-up comedian and I'm going to move into this. And then I moved away from broadcasting. Then that was fine. I loved it, particularly for the first year. 2018, I was loving it sick. I was like, how good's this? I'm not even in a glass chamber. Then 2019, I was going, kind of like feeling like I should be doing more, but I was always provided with stimulus.
Yeah. Because you go into a radio company, they put everyone around you.
Yeah. The stimulus is always there for me. And I respond really, really well to it, whether it's difficult or not. When the stimulus is there, I love it. I was understimulated. And as a result of being understimulated and no pressure, and I thrive on pressure. I love pressure. I don't like stress, but I love pressure. And then when there was no pressure, because I wasn't required to do broadcasting daily, and because there was no need for those skill sets to be required by others, started getting to malaise. And then at the end of 2019, I was finding that it was one real clear moment for me where my wife was driving my children to school and I was still in bed. And I was like...
You were a morning radio guy for a long time. Yeah.
And it was like 8 o'clock and I was in bed and I go, what are you doing? And in my mind, it's like, she'll drop off the kids and Dad will just sleep in. And it's like, what is going on here? And I could see that there was a descent. It was a descent into, it's like, boiling a frog. And it was slowly happening. And I went, ooh, you're gonna slip into depression. This is how it starts and it begins. And fortunately, I had that moment. I was going, all right, well, this is going down, and I need to find something that pulls it back up because this is not me. And that's when the opportunity to go on SAS Australia came, and I was just like, I'm
going to use that.
That's me.
Yeah,
that's me.
Do you think if the opportunity was not given to you, would you have sought out something?
It's a good question. I don't know. Yes, but it wouldn't have been as impactful.
Okay.
I would have thought that I was doing something as impactful. I would have done something, but I don't think I would have done something as transformative as that, because it took me months and months to train up for it physically and mentally. I endured more in preparation for it than I endured in part on the show. It was just compressed on the show. But yeah, I walked in that. It's just such a sliding doors moment. I literally opened up a door and I walked in, and bang, there was a hood on my head, and that was the end of who I was. They bagged me up and put me into a truck, and that was the last I knew of that man.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow.
Everything changed after that.
Yeah.
And it was very weird, even though it was like a really hostile and immediate exposure deliberately, having a bag over your head and zip tied up and the whole lot in a van, people screaming at you. It was full on. And it was like, wow. But it was the weirdest thing. I was like, I can sense that other people are more uncomfortable than I am in this circumstance.
But for someone who likes being under pressure and you're used to stimuli coming at you, go, I'm home. I'm back, baby. Turn on the lights, but I'm back.
See, it was like, figure it out. What's your environment like? Where are you? What's under your feet? What's behind you? Is there glass behind you? Is there what? Because I'm bagged. I couldn't see it. I was like, immediately, I was just trying to get information. I wasn't going, who or what? I was going, we know what this is.
Yeah.
So just try and pick up whatever you can. How many people are in this truck? Where are you placed, do you reckon, in the truck? Are you close to the door? Are you close to the driver? Can you, just instantly changed me. And then when I completed it, it was like, done. I was like, whoever that guy was who went in, he's finished, and now this guy starts.
Never to return.
No.
Yeah. And you've gone on to do a whole lot more since then, which I want to come to in a few minutes.
Well, that's a whole other podcast.
That's the next episode we're coming to.
Listeners are right now going, oh my God, there's not more of this guy, is there?
Can I talk to fatherhood?
Sure.
I showed you downstairs, we had this huge mural that Stephen, my business partner, and I painted for our dads. My dad died in 2016. Stephen's dad is still alive, but we imagined them having a beer together and laughing together, and we imagined them laughing at their two stupid sons painting a mural of them.
I love that.
And I've heard you talk about both your mom and dad, and of course they've both passed. My
Yes.
dad has passed, and I often think at midlife we start really thinking about fatherhood because our own fathers are either they're still here, they're elderly, or they're gone. We start thinking about it. And you said your kids are teenagers. My youngest is 20. And I was thinking about you because I saw you talk about it recently, but I had a conversation with my dad the night before he died, but I didn't know that at the time. I was at an airport. He and I had a chat. I used to go back to Ireland every 6 months. I'd go back and he'd say, if you promise to come back in December, I promise I'll be alive. And I'd go back in December. If you promise to come back in June, I promise to be alive. And I'd go back in June. We had this ongoing conversation. Well, not for years. About 4 years it went on. And then I rang him from this airport and he goes, oh, by the way, I know you're coming home in December. I won't be here. And we had a conversation about that. He goes, oh, I'm definitely, my time has definitely come. And we had a big conversation. We actually said goodbye to each other. And now I flew from Mexico to Sao Paulo. When I landed in Sao Paulo, he was dead. But I often think back to that extraordinary conversation that I was privileged to have, which is one of the reasons why we have this huge mural on the wall. And is why Stephen's dad would never split the G in the pint of Guinness on that painting that you
that I noticed.
You've talked about your parents and how they influenced you, and I've heard you say a while ago on you as a father, you're very mindful of it now. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I try to be a good dad to my son. I've got a son and a daughter. My son's almost 17 and my daughter is 14. It's been a real thing in my life to try and be a good dad. Not that my dad was a bad dad. It was just he was distant and a bit disconnected, and that came from his father being quite distant when he was young. My grandfather fought in the wars, and he was away during the war when my father was an infant, and the relationship between him and his father was quite old school and distant. There was a saying in my house which was about children, which was seen but not heard. Unfortunately, I got heard heaps because I was awesome.
And you became a comedian.
So loud all the time. But my father and I used to clash a lot. You know, for the first 16 to 18 years of my life, I couldn't stand my father. We just clashed, everything about it. My brother was always the golden hair boy. There was all these different things. And then when I was about 18, I started to form a bond with my dad, and we started to become mates, and it was through humour. So I started connecting. I was becoming funny, and I realised that my dad, he loved humour, he loved comedy, and so it was a way to bond with my dad. By the time I was 21, I was doing stand-up, and my dad could not have been prouder. He loved the fact that I'd gone into the arts and I'd gone into comedy very specifically. Then we had the greatest relationship from 21 until he died. And so, I often say sometimes, I spent the first half of my life hating my father, the second part of my life adoring him. Whereas what I wanted my son to know, and he does know, is just how much I love him. I tell him all the time. He's irritated by it. But my father, the only time I remember my father telling me that he loved me was the week he died, days before he died. So, and it was tough. I could see how hard it was for him to say those words to me. I knew when I was leaving my dad, I thought, just in case I don't see him again, I want to make sure the last words I say to my father are, I love you. So I just, as I was walking out, I said, he asked me a question, and I answered it. And I said, Dad, I love you. So that when I walked out, the last thing I'd said to him was, I love you. And I did the same thing with my mother. I made sure the last words I said to them were, I love you. Because everything else is peripheral. My relationship with my dad, unfortunately, ended too soon. He was a mentor and we had a great relationship. He was a great raconteur. But I had a good relationship with my mum as well until she passed. A very different relationship, a different dynamic, but a good relationship with my mum as well. My dad, similar to your dad, my dad died whilst I was in transit to go and see him. I was on an aeroplane. He died whilst I was on an aeroplane flying to Melbourne to see him. But with my mother, it was very, very different. My mother had leukemia. She was 84. This is just last year. And she was essentially in hospice. So she's in hospital in a bed, and it was very, very tough on my brother and I. And I was meant to fly overseas, and I cancelled the flight because I wasn't going to get caught again. I was meant to fly overseas on a Sunday. I flew to Melbourne and stayed with my mum for 5 nights. I stayed with her as like a bedside vigil. I barely left her. And I literally slept there overnight and hung out with her, and just watched her over a short period of time slowly recess into a state where she was non-compass. I don't know if she could understand me. I always spoke to her like she could understand me. But she wasn't able to communicate with me after a while, so I just cared for my mum until she passed. But it was very important for me to be there and to be the person to ride it out with her. And I told her when I arrived, I said, once my brother left, I said, and everyone had come to see her and all that was squared away days before she passed. And I just said to her, I said, it's you and me now. We ride this one out together. And I did. I just wrote it out.
How lovely is that?
It's tough. It's tough. It's self-anointed suffering and sacrifice. And I'm not trying to look like a martyr or anything like that, but it was a conscious decision I wouldn't have made 6-7 years ago. I wouldn't have been that guy to make that decision, to understand that I'm now going to put myself into a prolonged period of suffering. I'm going to watch my mother die. I'm going to be in the room with her when she crosses over. This is happening. I'm going to do it. And I knew that it would haunt me. It would be painful. It would be hard. It would be hard to speak about. But I was like, there's no better gift I can give her.
I was going to say, don't we owe that? Yeah, we owe that.
For her, she was always proud of what I did, but it's about who I am. So I thought, I am the sort of person that will write it out. So I wrote it out with her. So now, I'm hoping that my children have a bedside vigil. And I hope it's a very, very, very prolonged, slow vigil for a long time so they can understand how much they owe me. They owe me that much that I should probably go on for a couple of months.
I regularly remind my children when we're out for dinner and I'm paying for it, or on the 21st birthday when I get them a second-hand car. This is my down payment from when I'm 84. I want to remind you, this is what this is for. This is not for tonight. Yeah.
That's right. But I think my mum instilled that in me, that the good people are there at the end. And it's important. And I wasn't there when my grandfather died, and I wasn't there when my father died. So it was very important to me. And also too, I did it for my brother as well, because my brother had been there when my grandfather died and he'd been very good to my dad. So I kind of owed him one. And he was really good about it. I think he recognized that I needed it as well. But it's a very, very weird thing. It's very, and that, I think it's so relevant for your podcast and who you're talking to and what it's about, is that you shift, you change. There's two types of men in this world: men who have lost their father and men who haven't. Whether you've got a good relationship or bad, once they're gone, you're now the guy.
Yeah, you're the adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the first transformative thing, in that sense. So that was, for me, that was about 18 years ago. But then when you lose both parents, then you go up the level. You're now that level now. It's not you. You go into grandparent mode.
Yeah, you're the elder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the chieftain.
Yeah.
You're the elder. You move from being the warrior to the philosopher. And I think that you want to have that transition. It doesn't necessarily even have to be anchored to the departure of your parents and the death of your parents. But at some stage, Clint Eastwood, you move from being the warrior to the philosopher.
Yep.
And you move from being the actor to the director. You look down, you see the broader picture, and you offer information as you see it, as opposed to being channeled and narrowed and just fighting.
I'm going to use that as a segue to watching you sprout philosophy with a glass in your hand at a wine show a couple of years ago in Surrey Hills. And you've now built that into an extraordinary emerging business where you celebrate both wine and comedy in the same show. And the jokes get funnier and funnier the more wine that is drank throughout the show. Yeah.
I have a show called An Idiot's Guide to Wine, which I wrote in COVID, in one of the lockdowns, because I'd learnt from the first lockdowns that sometimes these things go longer than we expect. And I wasn't going to waste the time. So I did a lot in the lockdowns. And I also knew what was good for me was not having idle hands. So I wrote a show called An Idiot's Guide to Wine. And when I got out of lockdowns in 2022, I started touring it. You would have seen that one. Then I did volume 2 and now I'm doing volume 3, which is currently on tour around Australia, and I've taken it overseas. But it's also it's been franchised and licensed overseas. So the format for it and the content for the show has gone overseas, which is the legacy play.
Yeah.
So sadly, my international touring career of my own show was very short. It was like 2 weeks training other people how to do my show. It was amazing. I loved it. I went to Atlanta and to Chicago where I perform a show, and London where I perform a show. And in Chicago and the UK, I watched somebody else do my show.
What was that like?
It's very weird.
Yeah.
Felt
And
very weird.
do they do your jokes, your material?
Yes, they do my material, and we work with them.
Yeah.
So we workshop them so that they can do local references and keep it, sensible to their audience.
Because you are a wine expert.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we
People
qualify
may
them.
not know that.
We
That's
qualify
right.
them in wine. So I've got what they call a WSET 3, WSET 3, and I'm a qualified wine judge as well. So yeah, it's born of the two passions, wine and comedy. Many passions. I've got so many.
This is what I'm realizing about you, Merrick, is that you're a guy who gets really clear what you love, and you make sure you combine that and integrate that into who you are. So SAS comedy, wine. I trained to be an expert in wine, and now I do a show about wine and comedy.
Yeah.
Like not many people get to integrate everything together.
No, and it's the Japanese call it ikigai, when you can get your interests and what you can be paid for and what you love, and you can kind of wrap it all up in a circle. But it's tough for people to find that. But if you can, it's pretty joyous. Yeah. I love it. I love doing that show. And Idiot's Got the Wine, any of them. I love it. I love it because it's different. It's a format. It's something I created. And I enjoy performing it immensely. I've never tired of doing that show. But then when you see somebody else doing it, there's that moment of going, oh, that's mine. And I'm envious because I want to be doing it. But at the same time, the fulfillment comes from the legacy play. I've created a format that is traveling overseas. I've created something that is beyond me. And it's not my purpose to do that. Maybe it is. I don't know.
What's it like being an entrepreneur?
It's not easy.
No.
It's a strange word. I reckon 10 years ago, probably about 15 years ago, somebody said to me, "You're very entrepreneurial," and I took it as a sledge, because I felt like entrepreneurs were, and it's a very fashionable word now. It's like founder or creator, but at that time I was like, "No, come on," and they said, "You're very entrepreneurial," and I took it as being slightly insulting. But what I've come to realise is that, I'm entrepreneurial. I combine things that didn't exist previously, and I bring them together and I create things.
That's value. I mean, I've been to 2 of your shows, Surrey Hills and Canberra.
Yep.
And I'm sure when you're touring, I'll be here this year too, because there's
Please.
value.
Let's
Right?
go. Is this, you've invited me in to get free tickets?
That's exactly right. Can we record that? He's offered free tickets for all of our listeners.
It's a trap.
You mentioned legacy. How are you thinking of legacy now? Like, I know you said it's beyond you. You've got 10 countries as part of the legacy play. But how do you think of legacy?
What do you leave that can have a resonance beyond your life? And it's not money, because it can be like, if you earn $1 billion and then you leave it to somebody, they could do bad with that money. They could do good. But if you know your legacy, you can see the shockwave that is going to go beyond your lifespan. Money, you don't know. And money changes people. Whereas if you've left a legacy, like Fred Hollows is a great example. He's got a legacy thing. He changed the way children saw the world. He helped people who couldn't see, blind people, created a vision for them. So that's a legacy. That guy's not here, but he's created a legacy that is still around today. You say Fred Hollows, people know what you're talking about. You can, of course, have terrible legacies. Dictators tend to have poor legacies. But I think if you can have something that resonates and ripples beyond your life. Now, what I've come to realise too with comedy is that I have this a lot, and I get this more now than I used to get, is that men, this happened to me literally last week. A guy came up to me and said, "I used to listen to you boys on the radio, and I was in a shit job and I hated it. But when I was driving, you would cheer me up and I'd be in a good mood, and it made my life easier." And you go, oh, that's nice. Then you think back and go, that was 20 years ago, bro.
He still remembers it.
But that's a resonance.
Yeah.
So if he's told me that kind of, that gives me, that energy transference. If I hear that, I go, that's great. Not because he says, oh, it was, something specific about the comedy. It was the impact. And that ripple effect is more important to me than winning an award. I don't care about awards and trophies and stuff like that. I love being competitive, but I'm one of those people, I win a trophy and put it down. I don't care. It's like, what's the next one?
Yeah, I moved on.
Yeah. So with legacy is not a trophy. It's investing in something. It's planting that tree that you'll never sit under. But by doing something that is positive, when I leave, if that has a flow-on effect and that I inspire somebody who then inspires somebody else through a positive creation, I've done something that has resonated with somebody, they create a resonance that benefits somebody else. That is a huge
ripple effect.
Yep.
You're 52 now?
But I look 40.
I was going to say 35, but I'll go 40. What do you reckon the 75-year-old version of Merrick would be asking you or telling you if they could talk to you?
I think about that a lot. I do. I think about lots of things. I'm metacognitive. I always think about what my own brain is thinking at any given time. And I have thought about that. And there's two versions. And one is fanciful and the other one is probably more accurate, but I like the fanciful one. The fanciful one is me overlooking an ocean on a warm day, drinking a glass of wine and just chilling out. Just chilling out. Just having a good time. Just rewarding myself for all that hard work and grit that I've gone through. But as my wife says to me, she goes, that's just not you. I'll be doing something. I think that will be a part of my day, but I'll go and work in like a men's shed or something like that. I'll go and, tinker or do something, or probably gardening. Like I'm really, really oddly very, very into horticulture.
I'm not surprised. It's structure.
Yeah. Drugs. Yeah. Mainly drugs. Oh, we've got to make a profit.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
My wife is very expensive.
Yes, right.
No, I'm just joking. That's just a joke. It's not a joke. I'll do something. I'll be creating something. But I think when I'm 75, I want to be mentoring someone. I'd like to be mentoring somebody my age now. Because I believe that good mentoring, you mentor up and you mentor down. You should always have a mentor above you or more. You don't have to have one. You can have several. I do. Have mentors above you. But for the law of reciprocity, you have to find people and help them and mentor, because it's not right for you to sit in the middle there and take unless you give. And then that goes, to the laws of reciprocity.
So the 75 version of you will have a 90-year-old mentor and a 50-year-old mentee.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
I would love that. And people go, a 90-year-old mentor, what are they going to offer you? They're going to offer you 15 years more than what you already know.
That's right. And distillation over time.
Yeah. They're going to tell you how to piss your pants in public. That's what they're going to tell you.
And get away with it.
How to master it. How to master it, make it look like an accident because you're old, but really you've actually elected to do that because you think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get to that age where at 89, the comedy lever switches back on. You just go, if I piss my pants on this bus, people will feel sorry for me. And that's a form of attention I'm prepared to get. I like that. And then you elect to do it. That's a joke, Pod. I'm just joking. I'm not going to do that. My wife's going to put me in a home for sure. For sure.
What question have I not asked you that we should be asking you?
Are you happy? That's what everybody should ask themselves and ask others. Are you happy? Am I happy? Yes, I'm happy with what I am, which I wasn't always. I'm happy with what I do, which I wasn't always. I'm happy that I have experienced so much. Happy is always a fluctuation, and I think people just go, it's too frivolous. People say, are you happy? Are you happy? And people don't genuinely ask, are you happy? People ask if you're sad, but people will say, are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy doing that. And the people don't really want to look you in the eyes and answer that question, because that's a difficult question to ask, and it's a difficult question to answer, because you tell if somebody's not being truthful. Happiness fluctuates. That is part of the whole life experience as well. I think we look too much to be happy and to do things that make us happy. But to get those, to give the frame of reference, you've got to understand, and to live the full life, you've got to understand that that comes with difficulty, challenge, suffering, pain, all those things.
And acceptance.
Yeah. I say to my son, when it was his cat that died years ago, and he was only a boy, and he was very, very upset. And I told him again when my mother died. I said that loss is the price we pay for love. Accept the loss and receive the love. But don't think you're going to get one.
They come together. It's a package. That's right. Exactly right. Final question for you.
Please.
What are your last words of wisdom for our audience?
Never stop not stopping. Never stop not stopping. I started as like a hashtag joke on my socials years ago as a thing. And now I literally have it written on a piece of paper above my laptop at home on my desk, because it's a good little reminder. Never stop not stopping, because you are going to hit walls. You're going to find things are hard. But, it's like the ring, this too shall pass. The acceptance of the good and the bad, but never stop not stopping. Just keep forward, keep forward, keep forward. Always one step, always one step, always one step. Just keep going. If you stop, you've stopped.
That sounds like spoken like a former SAS turned comedian.
Sounds like an idiot. Don't take my advice. I thought this was a comedy podcast. This is going really square. Thanks, Rod.
Merrick Watts, pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening or watching, depending which platform you're accessing this podcast on. I hope you enjoyed it. I really got a lot from that conversation. And I will record a short episode next on what I've learned, my thoughts in the conversation, some reflections. And I'm going to do an experiment based upon what I've learned today. So you'll hear about that in the next episode. If you want a permanent reminder of what we chatted about or some of the key summary points, go to don'tlettheoldmanin.com/reflections and download that. In the meantime, don't let the old man in. We'll see you next time.